Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Tonight, we're going to do a little bit of a mixed bag. I've got a little material design and XAML stuff to look at, specifically the Smart Hit pull request from Nikolai. Um, and then from there, we might actually jump into doing some .NET templates specifically for Avalonia. I've got a particular app of mine that I would like to have a mobile component for, and so I'm thinking I might do it with Avalonia. But before I jump in and do that, I kind of want to spin a .NET template to have all of the stuff in it that I want. That's kind of my thinking. So we might do a little bit of that. Okay, first, diving head first. Yay! Okay, so material design in XAML, pull requests, and this little smart hint thing. I do want to show off one cool thing though. So get cracking, right? Material design. Like we could go to the pull requests here, or we could just go here, right? So focus view and get cracking is like the where's my stuff? What should I be doing thing? And then the key settings to note, right, are going to be these three guys right here, right? Make sure you've got your drop down set. I've spent a great deal of time being very confused because I didn't have my workspace or hosting service set properly. Yeah, you want to actually pick the right one for where you want to go. But in this case, we go PRs, and then rather than my PRs, I go needs my review. Oh, isn't that kind of cool? Isn't that kind of cool? And I can just go. Now, I could have clicked the thing on the other side. It just clicked here. But where is the fun in that? So, uh, fun little cheater tip. I just installed extension. In case you are interested in doing this. Now, the one of the things that I wanted to look at closely because I'm looking at getting this merged in, and Nikolai is very good at calling out breaking changes. And for this library, it's important to understand. So, for people who aren't familiar, Semver v2, right? So, semantic versioning. This is the way that most people version library. Just to be clear, right? Major, minor, patch. Now, so that much everyone can agree on, ish. Looking at you, .NET SDK. Anyway, they wanted to pack in 4 digits into a 3-digit number, so they had to do some fun number games. But the idea is major version rev when you've got breaking changes. Izzy, good early morning to you. Minor when you've got when you add functionality with backwards compatibility and patch. The problem is these are easy words to say. Oh yeah, Git version. This does not line up well. And for the most part, I try to version the material design library roughly following this. The hard part is patch versions really are a little rare for me, right? I typically will do a patch version. You'll see like a .1, .2, whatever, right after a release, because typically I'll put out a release and then usually people come back with, oh, shoot, there's the following bugs. Andrew, welcome. Well, we got people from all over today. This is great. And so we will so it's a little unusual. So most things are minor. And the problem is what do you do on a visual breaking change? Because in the case of this library, a breaking change for the developers consuming it, oftentimes, like if I go and change the default padding to something and that bloats somebody's form up, they consider that a breaking change. So we've got these two labels here that I try to use to capture that of what's a breaking API change, meaning what is a source code level breaking change. I don't deal with binary level breaking changes, and those are different, right? So if it requires the developer to change their code, breaking change, right? If if the same text in your file doesn't require, like we swap out for like from default method parameters to an overload, right? You don't have to change your source code per se. It'll still compile. I don't bother to call that a breaking, because binary breaking change just adds a whole nother layer to this. And at that point, everything's a breaking change. And it's very difficult otherwise. So for anybody who cares, I should probably document this somewhere. That would be a good thing to document. Mental note. But specifically, this one here, and this is where I don't know if I would call this a breaking change. So specifically what Nikolai is calling out is we have all of the assist classes, which are basically things that contain WPF attached properties. So they're like the extension methods only for properties in WPF. And before, changing this was enough, right? This is no longer enough because we had a bunch of styles whose purpose in life was to toggle the attached property. Yeah, any breaking change is a major bump, which is why I typically call source breaking change a breaking change, right? But this is one where if somebody were to have set this and they're expecting the floating behavior, it's no longer going to actually give them the floating behavior. They need to actually go and change their style. And so this is where it's like, and I agree with Nikolai. This is a good change in general. That we've gone back and forth on what is the way that people should change the look between the various text boxes and whether those should be attached properties or styles. And I kind of like styles as the way that people change it, because attached properties, you have to deal with every possible permutation that people could turn stuff on and off, and that gets real confusing real quick. You get to 3 and it's already too much for my brain to handle, and I go, things don't make sense anymore, right? Optional things, turn it on and off, sure, but full on changing, it really should be a style. And this is where it gets to be a little bit, and then this one here, I would call a visual breaking change, right? Exactly the stuff that I mentioned is various changes in the height, um, that causes some slight inconsistency. However, all of these styles weren't overly consistent in the first place, so this is getting us in a better direction. Okay, I've already read through this, and so if anybody wants to read through the whole thing, Nikolai writes really good descriptions on his PRs. Okay. We looked at this a few weeks ago as well, and so I want to go through, and I would like to let's see, view repo, and then I would like to. This is this one here. This is this one here. So let's check this one out. Yep, and just because I've checked it out before, we'll do that, and then I would like to go here. Oh, me. I am going to give this guy a quick run through. There was a handful of real minor things I saw in the code, but I think we are getting pretty close. There's a second PR sitting out there where this is then being added into combo box. I think there's going to be an open debate whether the next version should be 5.1 or not, but we'll see. I kind of like putting it into 5.1. The other thing to be aware of for anybody wanting to contribute, there is a proposal that's been put out by one of the other maintainers for refactoring the layout of this, because right now you got to scroll quite a ways before you get down to the README. This is kind of a mess, right? There's not consistent naming on some of this stuff. There's weird stuff all over the place. It's just kind of yucky, right? So moving a lot of these things underneath a source directory. There's actually a nice, go ahead and find it real quick. David Fowler has a great description. I don't see it where I might have to go hunt down where it was sent to me. And it may be out on a discussion board here too. Real quick. Restruct, yeah, this guy here. So yeah, so this guy here, for anybody who wants to play along, this is a recommended .NET project structure. So if people are starting off and you're like, I don't know what to do, this is at least a good option, right? I don't think there's one good option, but I think this is at least one good structure that can get you started, right? Of how to lay things out. I don't always like going through and doing this separation here, but I've actually recently started separating tests and source things. Normally I like my tests really close to my source. However, there's some advantages with doing it this way. One of which is if you use like the directory build props or any of the MS build files that are directory based, it's kind of convenient to have all of your tests in one place. So you can then apply a common set of props to it. There's other ways around it, right? You could hunt for things with a suffix of tests or similar. Um, yeah, and you're right, Izzy. It does. There is extra overhead then to go through and do this, and not everybody really needs this, right? Like in general, you won't have a lib, you won't have a packages, you may or may not have a samples, and this build-in artifacts. I don't fully understand the difference between them, right? Um, like this says build customizations with like MS build files, but that's not where I'm likely to put them. Um, oh, Andrew, that's a good question. I don't actually know the origin of that. I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess that it's because developers are lazy and don't like typing. That's gonna be my get. Nothing to back that up other than a little bit of personal experience, but I don't know. So the repository is probably going to get restructured. Maybe not perfectly like this, but at least close to this. At least at a bare minimum, we're not going to have this whole mess out here, right? It's confusing for people who come in to look at the project. It's not clear where to go. There's this web thing. This MD resource gen doesn't match the naming. We've got these shims things out here. Like, I agree. It is not clear how this is expected to behave and work. It should be cleaned up. Source, I believe, was a keyword for something else a long time ago. Oh, I could see that. I could very much see that. And so naturally, developers did what we always do and go, oh, it's not unique if I just drop a couple letters. So just be aware that there will probably be a thing here. And I kind of agree because I realized the other thing that I'd like to change is this one. The screenshots inside this README are a little dated. I think a lot of them are still pretty accurate, but like some of these need to be updated and changed. And I don't think they actually all need to be here because you'll note I'm still scrolling. Like the little scroll bar hasn't gone below my arm yet, right? Like it, like this is a long bloody scroll. So I think what I would love to do is flatten up this README, have it be a little shorter and sweeter. The other thing that I really like about doing it is putting a docs thing in here because the big issue with the wiki is I used to have it public where anyone could edit it, but then we ran into a couple times where a bunch of people just like blew stuff away or didn't realize what they were doing and accidentally edited stuff. It's like and I was at a point where I didn't have a lot of time to go through and fix it, and so I just locked it down so it would stop changing, which worked. But I'm thinking it would be cleaner to just have a docs directory pointed in there, and then a lot of these screenshots and demo-y stuff can probably just like link into that and then have it show up in there. So moving the wiki in. The other thing is people who do things like Hacktoberfest who want PR contributions, the wiki doesn't count, which is dumb. Even though it's a Git repo, right? You can clone this guy. It doesn't count because it's not it's a Git repo, but it's not really a full repo because you don't get all the extra stuff with it. It's like, it'd be nice if there was a way for people to actually like contribute. Or when people see problems, right now their way is open an issue and then one of three of us have to go in and fix it. It's like, yuck. Yuck. It'd be nice if they could open a PR and I could go, yes, that looks great. Good change. Anyway, all of that to say, we're opening this guy up. Okay, we're gonna close up all of this stuff. Okay, so first thing that I noticed in the code review. Oh, here we are. I did notice this one little line here. This is a knit smart hint view model, but we're gonna go look at it. Smart hint view model, because I think we cleaned up a lot of this stuff prior. Then it was to something. I'm just gonna scroll until I see it. Right. So value is a bool. Those are equal. Do that. Make that a little nicer. At some point, what we will probably do is I would like to kill off this view model base. Like when I first took over the project, there was some guidance to say, hey, let's try not to show preference to any MVVM framework, because at the time there was like 4 or 5 decent ones out there, and and it was like, well, we don't want to be like kingmakers and picking which one's better. We're gonna just kind of do this, and then people can decide which ones they want. I don't think that's the landscape anymore. Like, one has clearly won. It's Microsoft's MVVM toolkit, and the others have either gone by the wayside or aren't as popular, or have gotten a little more specific. Like Prism, I think, is the only other viable competitor out there. Like, and Prism's a lot more and a lot more opinionated, and so people who go that way, if you do Prism, you buy into the whole shebang. Don't do it part way. So, okay, not gonna stress about that one too much because we're gonna fire it up. Same with the rest of the demo. We're just gonna go through and look at it. And then these are the UI tests. So this is always the most interesting thing for me because this guy now passes the pipeline, I believe. I believe I saw a green check. So for code reviews, this is one of my favorite things to do is once a PR passes your pipeline, assuming you've got reasonable tests, I now can review this under the assumption that all the tests are good, which is perfect. That's what we want. So I now know that the following tests pass. So the first thing I'm looking at, this one was the floating hint offset within range for the outline password box. I see the test deleted. That gives me a mild amount of pause. I'm just going to do that as a reminder. Come back and look at it. But I'm guessing either there's a replacement down here, and specifically this issue 2203. I want to just make sure that this isn't something that rebreaks. Let's see. This is pulling in padding. I'm curious why. Let's go here. So text box test line 404. Let's go take a look at this because I don't think that's needed. Box test, UI test, G404. Oh, look, we did find it. Okay, that was funny for any of you paying attention. Let's see. So this guy here, get property. Why can I not just do get padding and be done with it? Right? Like you can do this stuff here if you want, but that's a lot of typing. That's a little better. Make sure I didn't break the test. And yes, I am drinking from a C# goblet. Something I made many, many, many years ago when Visual Studio 2005 was the latest release. So that gives you any idea of how old it is. Yay, test still passes. Good. Okay, so that cleans that up. And it's not wrong to do it this way if you want. It's just it's a lot of extra typing. And part of what XAML test does is it source generators all the built-in properties that it knows how to handle. It just source generators in, which is great. Okay, so this was just renamed from margin to padding to represent the property change. Great. Perfect. Same thing here. Great. And that just cleans that up. And then this switches here. It's interesting. What was the change here? Vertical alignment top. More of this theory data. So vertical alignment top for the expected floating hint alignment. Okay. I'm wondering if wasn't that the time .NET became mainstream over BB6? I don't know. Like, so when I first started doing development, let's see, or I should say, when I first touched .NET, technically my very first, I'm going to call it real programming language because I don't count my little basic stuff as real, was VB.NET. And that was using Visual Studio 2003. And that was kind of my first foray into .NET development. And at the time, the university I was going to, they did most stuff in Python, Java, or C. And so I did VB.net at home for fun because it was WinForms and there was the WYSIWYG editor, and I really liked how easily it was to go from idea to running app. Whereas in university, usually you're building like console apps in Java or Python. It's like, that's cool, but I can't like give that to anyone else to use. If I build it in WinForms, they have buttons and text boxes and they can click and we can do cool stuff with it. And it was kind of fun. So I built a lot of apps that way. And then the very first job that I was given, I came in with VB.net on my resume as well as Java, and they were doing this C# thing, and I was very nervous because I didn't know anything about C# going into the interview. And one of the interviewers is like, "Oh, but you know Java and you know VB.net, just smush them together." I'm like, "Oh." And so that weekend I went home and I learned C#. And then I got a job offer and I was like, I'm very happy I spent time learning C#. And at that point, I never looked back. Like C# quickly became my go-to language because like VB.net was nice, but there's a lot of stuff in VB where the syntax is just kind of weird. There's just weirdness. Like I kind of liked the Java syntax over the VB.net syntax, but I liked what I could build in VB.net. So then when C#, I was like, oh, I can do both. It was awesome. And so I kind of ended up going down that path, which, yeah, needless to say, I still kind of like C#. Okay, so these are the changes here that I'm most interested in taking a look at. So these ones here, these are specifically just adding in the hints, which I think is great. And this is just adding in the hint. The key thing here, and this is why we have these tests, is because this test is actually calling out that exact breaking change that Nikolai did in his description. Is when we turn floating on, if somebody has turned floating on with just the attached property, they're not going to get the behavior they expect anymore. I'm trying to decide if that is a minor or a major version rev. Because the code still compiles, the code still works, it just doesn't look the same anymore. They don't get the visual of the floating hint. That feels more like a visual breaking change to me than a source breaking change. Because the code still compiles, the code still runs, it just looks a little different. This is totally going to be the thing that gives me, like, somebody should clip this. This is going to be the thing after I kick the next release that I get issues logged in. Like, there were certain changes in the 5.0 release that I just knew I was going to get issues logged on, and they landed right where I expected. The breaking change in the default XAML syntax, that has been the thing that has tripped most people up, because it's the first thing that breaks. And then I think there's been 4 or 5 issues or discussions that I've logged, and I've had to kind of direct people to, hey, there's a migration guide. It's a 5.0 release. That means breaking changes. Go check it out. It's cool. How different? 2 to 3 pixels or 10 to 20? That's a good question. We're gonna go play with this and find out. Because I think it's closer to the 2 to 3. But I think the bigger difference is you don't get the floating text anymore. So even though the size won't be a huge difference, you will no longer see your hint float to the top all by itself. And I think that's I think the bigger thing. Because what happened is, and I think we'll get to it here in a second in this review, is, sorry, I'm reading this text, is we before all of the various text box styles were one big bloody template, and you had to switch things on and off based upon what attached properties people set. One of the big drawbacks of that in WPF is that meant we were putting a bunch of elements into the visual tree that you may not ever use, because we have to put them in there because we don't know if you're going to switch that attached property to true later or not, which is kind of sucky for performance, and then it became a maintenance headache too. So that's part of what Nikolai was separating out is, okay, you tell us what feature you want of this text box, because it's a little unusual. You don't ever turn everything on together, right? Like you've got the outline text box and the filled text box. You don't have both, like those are mutually exclusive. Those really should be separate. So things like that. The floating hint just gets awkward in some of those cases because sometimes you might want a floating hint, sometimes you don't. And if you don't, it's a lot cheaper for us to render that text box if you don't need that feature, which is the need for the separation of styles. Okay. Yeah, so this is a shimmed in temporary constant. Okay, that makes sense. And I think in terms of your question earlier, I'm just looking to see here what these things are. Yeah, I mean, we're talking single digits in pixels for those at least. Okay, Boolean to dash style converter. Great. Like we've done this now multiple times. I almost want a base class. Whatever. This makes me happy. This makes me happy right here. So for people who haven't seen it, this is the new list pattern matching stuff in .NET 8. Last week we shimmed it in to work in Net Framework. So that was fun. So that makes me really happy. I like seeing that. And then people who aren't familiar with this trick, this is worth calling out. So you'll note this is a private static read-only object, right? Object. The reason for doing this is thickness is a struct, so a value type. And in C#, whenever you have a value type like an int or a thickness in this case, in order to store that as a reference, so this gets into your CS major stuff, a reference means you need to allocate memory on the heap, right? That's called a boxing operation inside of IL. So the value type gets boxed, put into a little box, and then put out on the heap. Great. The problem is when you want the value, you have to unbox it. It's like Christmas. You get the box back off the heap, you reach inside, and you pull the value out, and away you go. The problem is boxing can be kind of expensive at times. And in this case, we really just kind of want a static thing because it's like, this is an empty thickness. And value types, like ints and whatnot, are generally set up as immutable. Like mutable value types are usually a recipe for disaster. Because they're immutable, we don't really need to have multiple boxing operations. We can box it once and then just use that reference every time we need it. So it's a minor performance boost. But for certain things, if you do it a bunch, like sometimes value converters get used a ton, or if there's a bunch of elements that use the same value converter, it can be a very nice balancing act. What is going on? Oh, that's interesting. So we're list pattern matching into a bunch of variables, and then that's kind of ugly to read. I think part of this is GitHub is making it ugly to read. Part of me wants to go break this up into multiple lines. I don't know if I care enough to go and break it up into multiple lines right now, though. But then there's local functions that access these variables because these local functions are declared within scope of this. And it's actually rather impressive if you think about what the compiler is having to do, right? Because you can see where prefix hint behavior, this guy right here, right? So if I do, right? So this guy is declared up here inside of a pattern match. This function lives outside of the if. Now, normally on a pattern match local, that variable would only be valid inside of the if. But because this is a local function, the compiler knows that this local function is only invoked here inside of the if, and it allows access to the variable. You think about what the compiler has to do, that level of hopping is always impressive to me. Okay. Because technically, you could declare these local functions inside of the if statement as well. But that just adds nesting and makes it harder to see what's going on. This, I think, is perfectly clear. It's only on second glance and you go, wait, how does that work? But it works. That's what's important. I'm so happy we started decorating these things with knowable reference types. There's a feature out on the WPF repo requesting nullable reference type support inside of WPF. So there may be a future version of WPF where we actually get nullable reference type annotations on stuff, which is shocking because that's not a small surface. Like, that's a big surface. And technically, I won't be surprised if something like this comes through as declared nullable or not. It'll be interesting to see what they can declare non-null, because I suspect most things in WPF are going to get declared nullable. Just because WPF was written before generics, and so null was always a possibility. Always. It's rare that there isn't something in. Floating hint scale transform converter. Cool. Value is not, a negative list pattern match. See, I think this may have been the one that we did last week, if I remember right. Can't remember. There was one of these that we picked on. And actually, Nikolai then very promptly went and pointed out to me that I had made a bug in mine. So if anybody was watching the PRs after last week's stream, you'll note that there was a very quick change the very next day where it was pointed out to me that I had accidentally messed up some of the logic in the PR. So that was fun. Oh, and this is another thing to know about the list pattern match, because normally you don't always have a fixed set of things, right? But you can do the ... to say, hey, I expect the first thing to be a double, the next thing to be a double, third thing to be a double, the fourth thing to be a smart hint, the fifth thing to be a point, and I don't care about the rest, right? Some number, 0 to n more things. We just don't care, right? But you can only have this ... in the list pattern match either at the beginning or the end. You can't do it in the middle. And you can't do it multiple times. This is one of those things where I don't doubt, because every version of C#, there's always been the, hey, what's the new pattern matching thing that they've added? Because I think the last 4 or 5 versions, 5 maybe? Last several versions, there's been a new pattern matching feature in every single one of them, or improvements to existing pattern matching. And I will not be surprised to see more list pattern matching stuff. They just keep adding to it, and it's so nice. So nice. Wreaks havoc on analyzers, but it is so nice. Okay, so visibility hidden state is in floating position. So which one is this? Text field prefix text. Okay, that seems fine. This converter is obsolete when smart hit approach to text style is applied throughout. Ah, interesting. Should we mark it obsolete? That is a good question. Should this class be marked obsolete? I don't think it matters. So every major rev, I just do a control F and hunt for the word obsolete, and I kill things. Because obsolete things, I make no guarantees that they're going to live through a major version release. I think that's probably okay for now. Okay, and now we have some enums. And proper enum structure is to always declare a 0th element of a none or an unknown or an unspecified or something to that effect. And I'm trying to decide if these ones need to have it. Because by not having it, there's no unset value. I guess we're going to leave these unchecked for the moment, and I want to look at their usage. Because sometimes it doesn't make sense for them to exist, especially for enums that might be used in an attached property. It may not make sense because when somebody uses IntelliSense, you don't want them to be able to pick the unknown option. And yes, I'm aware we can set browsable false to hide things. And yeah, that's yucky. Because you still have to handle it in code. Let's see. Text field vertical alignment. Text suffix behavior, prefix. So these are just the wealth of options now available. Okay. Apply text box view vertical alignment. And this is one of those areas where I wish there was a clean way doing this. So if text box is a combo box, hunt the template, define editable text box. Assume it is a text box. Apply. Was this prior code in here? Was. I feel like this is apparently not. I feel like I remember seeing something like this elsewhere. Apply template and then find the content host. And it should be of type scroll viewer content. This is one of these areas where I was watching a testing thing earlier today, and there was a comment that was made. The person in question was talking about the port adapter simulator pattern and how it relates to testing, specifically, as he put it, testing at the edge, thinking like UI tests or hitting third-party systems, and how do you actually do that? That browser visible thing needs a parameter for accept this namespace. Yeah. The and the comment that they made was being able to put in a little adapter between your UI layer and what generated real UI and what generated your test UI so that you could do better testing. Like I've done that tactic, and then I started thinking about, well, what about WPF, right? Like the whole point of doing this, especially on this library, so that we could have it. And I was like, what would it take to have a simulated UI? Right? And then I went round and around. I'm like, well, simulating the user is almost easier than simulating the UI. But it got me thinking. I was like, it'd be really nice if we had like a source generator thing that could look at a template and generate out strongly typed stuff. Right? That way, all of these methods, because right now these are magic strings that are reliant upon names of things in our XAML templates. And the only guarantee we're going to get that these things exist is with tests. That's the only way we guarantee we don't break these things. Yeah, so it was just one of those thoughts. I was like, it would be really cool to have some sort of source generator thingy that could do that. Food for thought. Food for thought. I then quickly got very big ideas of what I could do with it, and then promptly decided that I should probably not do any of them. I've got enough strains on my time as it is. This is another great change as well. So rather than having the converters, so these converters here, you can see are at the root of the resource dictionary. This means any app that's currently referencing this resource dictionary immediately gets all of these resources showing up to them. That's less good, right? We don't, when you do static resource, you only want to see stuff that you added, not all the stuff. And we want to give people access to be able to see our styles that are in the resource dictionary, but we don't really want to clutter it with this. So we've been slowly moving resources down. Technically, this is potentially a source breaking change because we've now hidden away a converter that somebody could have been using directly. Now, if they were using it based upon this reference to smart hint, yuck. Like that's you shouldn't be doing that. That's a bad thing to begin with. But it is a thing that could have been done. But again, that's one of those there's changes like that where I don't like revving my major version if it's one of those we think somebody might have done this weird outside thing. Yeah, switch to 5G network and lagging about a minute. Yeah, no problem, Izzy. No, I got what you're referencing. Yeah, it's one of those things that would be really nice. Like, and latest C#, we even got better access modifiers to help kind of isolate things with like private protected. Because before we had protected internal, which is an or. The type is either available to derived types or internal to my assembly, which is cool. But then we got private protected, which is only derived types in my assembly, right? So it's the and rather than the or. It's like that's kind of cool. Most people don't even know that one exists. It's because very few people needed it, but the people who needed it a lot, or at least wanted it a lot. Okay, and then this one scares me. Ooh, obsoleting one of our newer brushes. Xbox hover is being obsoleted. Interesting. Interesting. What surprises me about this, and I might need to go check it, is I'm surprised this is just an addition here. Surprised it's an addition here. I'm wondering if it's meant to be an alternate key. We're going to look. Because the other thing that's not clear to me is, well, it is added here. It is added here into the obsolete shim. Nice. We'll go and look. I want to keep my eye out for this text box hover. I want to understand the change there. Okay, so first of all, we flattened the sprawl of all of the converters down. So hallelujah. Those gets flattened in. Same for this character count tile. Let's try that one again. Character counter text block. As this one is only expected to be used internally. This is the hint that goes under the bottom when you have a character counter turned on. But it's not really one that's expected to be used outside. We kind of just hide it away. Okay, outer border. Now, the one thing to be aware of is there are two types of X names that you'll see inside of a data template. One of them is template parts, which by convention are named with a prefix capital PART underscore. Those are things that are typically marked as items that people are expected to have in their template for the code behind for the control to work, right? Things like this are usually done so that triggers or relative source bindings, or I'm sorry, element name bindings can reference a particular item. Like, for example, this content grid or similar. Okay, because the other thing an Xname does is it gives you like fields and that kind of stuff. And I specifically am interested in that. Come back to this structure here in a second. But I want to grab this brush and I want to see its use. This is interesting. Why are we something's off here. This brush is being actively used in the new code, which feels like it was meant to be put in the alternate keys rather than in the obsolete key. Wondering if that was a mistake. That feels like something that might be a mistake. We'll double check it. Okay, we'll double check. Okay, let's fire this guy up real quick. Take a little gander and see what we got. We got a brand new smart hint page with all kinds of bells and whistles. And there was a little bit of debate, like because Nikolai is really good at building out these views, which are great for showing the breadth of what's possible. Like these are exhaustive, which is cool because you can literally test everything. There is a question of whether this type of view is better or whether this type of view is better. Right? Because it kind of depends on who your target audience is. There may be a middle ground that's worth doing. I'm almost wondering if we've potentially got two apps, right? One that's targeted at the developer of these things for testing purposes, and one that's targeted at showing off the library and its capabilities. And one of the things that I saw library was it XAML Llama shows it off a lot for the WinUI 3 stuff. They do a page where you basically see the control on the left and then like a property picker on the right, And the property picker is designed to be exhaustive of all the thingies you can set on it, all the interesting things you can set on it, right? I don't think they show off like padding or margin or things like that because that's boring. No one cares. But it gives you kind of that kind of property grid look, and then people who are like, ooh, I wonder what I can change or how I can make this thing look interesting. That's an option. And then you can kind of just have, list of controls. User picks one, and then you've got the list of properties, and so it gives the user that kind of thing. It doesn't, like, sometimes when I'm trying to come up with a UI, I kind of like just scrolling through a page like this and going, oh, that looks kind of cool. But like staring at these, like, it takes me a minute to realize, oh, the difference between this button and this button is this one has white text, this one has the theme color text, right? And then we've also got kind of a weird thing where oftentimes we've gone light, mid, dark, but down here we've clearly gone mid, light, dark, right? I'm willing to bet if I check this, yeah, light, mid, dark. So it's like, probably worth doing something of that nature. So it's like, yeah, okay, fine. Fine. Anyway, back to Smart Hint. So I think there's going to be at some point we'll do some cleanup on this UI app, and I also want to get it because we have a Material Design 3 app that's separate. I want to get it to where you can launch with either. I think we can do that. I think I have an idea of how to make it work. We just got to get a little fancy in the code, because I usually tell people the code inside the demo app is not something you should copy for your app. It is designed to show the breadth of what is possible, not always best practices. And best practices are probably to pick one of the patterns and do that. Don't do all of them. All of them is probably wrong. Okay. So this, I believe, mounts to the is floating, right? So if we do this and then type, right, Kevin, you'll note there is a weird thing here with the prefix. The prefix doesn't show up until you start typing. I think that's correct. Confirm. Material design. Look, because if we look here, so the guiding principles for this library are the material design docs. If they say something, we're probably going to mirror that. Like, that's just the whole point of this library, is to bring the Google material design stuff to WPF. So we kind of follow that first. And then if, let's see, label text 3. Oh, populated. Nope. Where is the prefix and suffix? The problem is this, these specs don't cover everything, which is frustrating because WPF has more controls than what exists here. And there are a handful of things that we just don't implement, like sheets isn't something we implement. Nor do I suspect it would be a thing that we would implement. Yeah, so like labeled text here with the prefix 5. Yeah, so with prefix. You'll note when empty, the prefix doesn't show up until you start typing, right? Or at least until there's content. I can't say exactly when that shows. The prefix. Where they only use prefix. This is where I argue that it's not right, like where that second jump is taking me to. But okay, short version, this is at least probable to be correct, because it's a little unlikely that somebody's going to want to have that there all the time. Floating hint alignment. So if we turn on is floating, right? Now, as soon as we go in here, it shows up. You'll note, oh, that's interesting. I think that's correct. There's a weird behavior of when that shows up. Sense though, it makes sense. Okay, and this is here. I am, part of me is wondering if that disjoint between the prefix showing up feels Feels weird. What's a sheet? Good question, Izzy. Good question. If we go here and look, right? So the idea here, this is very much a mobile-based layout, and that's why a lot of things in the spec don't necessarily get implemented. So if you have an Android phone, you might be familiar with kind of this raised thing coming in. A lot of what I will call layout controls for material design, we just don't implement because they don't make sense in a lot of cases. Stuff that we do implement is things like the drawers, the dialogues, those types of situations. Though I'm realizing drawer isn't showing up here. I'm wondering if it got renamed. Navigation. Oh, navigation drawer. There we go. Yeah, so they do call it a drawer. They just call it a navigation drawer. So of this type of layout. So some things we implement, some things we don't. Some things we do slightly differently because they can be quite prescriptive on how this is expected to work. But people have even pointed out that even things like Gmail don't completely follow the spec perfectly. So I usually tell people treat this as a guideline and know that even Google deviates from it at times because they decide that, oh, my particular use case warrants me changing from it, which is fine. Totally fine. Totally fine. Okay, so that looks good there. Floating thing. Interesting. Oh, that's the clear button. Has clear button. So if I turn that off, that behavior will stop. Yep. Then has errors. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. What's really impressing me is like I don't think it's required, but I'm noticing the date picker doesn't have a clear, like has clear button makes no effect to the date picker. I assume time picker is probably going to be the same, right? So hang on, I'm gonna see you, Andrew. Have a good one. Don't have too much fun at the meeting. We're gonna make a quick note. So let's see. Has clear button in date time pickers. I don't think this is a regression. I think this is just an oversight. Oftentimes, if you ever report a bug and go, "Hey, why wasn't this implemented?" and it's an attached property, the short version is probably because we forgot to. That's honestly the thing. Okay, so font size 20. Oh man, because this is where it gets real interesting. Because this is where we used to have lots of problems. That actually isn't bad at all. I like that. I like that a lot. Ripple on focus. The ripple is contained within. I think that's correct as well. Let me just want to double check that. Text fields. Let's see. Guideline. Image would show. So they don't do a ripple at all. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. And I've often wondered if doing like we don't do the required things either. We leave that up to you. That like you can do this. You put an asterisk at the end of your hint. You put an asterisk at the end of this, which is the helper text, and like you can make that all happen, right? Um, Prefix visibility. Oh, there's what I was looking for earlier. This guy. So focus when focused or not empty. always. I'm wondering if I'm trying to decide if the presence of ifs floating could really change whether prefix shows up when you put focus in it or not. Nikolai and I had a discussion on this, and I'm trying to remember the decision we came to and why. And then I just saw it floating. There's icon ripple on focus, right? So if we turn that off, there's no more ripple. And so, okay, so that makes sense. And then if we do custom padding, oh, we can't change. Got it. That's pretty cool. Can set the custom padding all the way. Okay, that's kind of neat. Curious why changing custom padding on and off, why that's changing that value, but that doesn't new spec highlighting enabled. That dude. That highlight like that. I don't know what this one does either. Might go look at that because I don't know what that is. Behavior align with. Yeah. So whether you want the hint here or not. Okay, I'm gonna make one more note. So I want to keep track of should prefix show on focus and is floating false. Outstanding question. I don't know what makes. I'm torn. Suffix visibility always. Yeah. Yeah, because it's weird to me that shows up on type. Like I don't mind them showing up when focus moves into the box because that feels a little less jarring, but on vertical alignment, stretch, bottom, center, and these are very minor changes. I don't know how well they're even coming across. Because unless we turn on where was the accepts? I saw, oh, there's the character counter one. Oh, that's right. Character counter doesn't work on rich text box. I forgot about that. A weird one. It's a weird one. Is there is adding, I saw it earlier. Where is the steps return? Alignment, inherit, floating alignment, font family, character counter, height, font size. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted. No, wait, I could have I saw it. Let's see, new spec, highlighting. I want to know what that does. Overall, I think this is pretty good. I mean, obviously, like some of these things don't work well if they're hot swapped with this sort of thing, but that doesn't bother me that much. That doesn't bother me at all. Okay, so I want to go look up this new spec highlight enabled because I want to know what that does. Yeah, you're buying it. You're bound to this. So what is bound to it? Text field new spec highlighting enabled. That's great that that's bound. Bound to an attached property. Okay, this guy goes here. So it has to be a filled text field. No, it has to not be filled, not be outlined, and then is mouse over changes the outer border on the bottom. Outer border on the, like, setting the border and the border thickness. This thing must have a, oh, let's see. So it has to be here, right? So that's the date picker style. Oh, interesting. Suffix go behind the icon. I on date picker suffix behind icon on mouse over. Okay, so that related to this? Oh. Uh with new spec highlighting in bold. I'm just gonna make the problem occur. Screenshot. We're just gonna grab this whole thing, slap that into my favorite paint.net. We're gonna put that in. Yes. Leave that off to the side for a moment. Okay, cool. So that gets me to there. Same thing with time picker. That list there. Like some of these where it's clearly off, but then it fixes once selected. That doesn't bother me that much. But I want to see this thing actually work. Right? So this is that highlight. That thing's thicker. Turn this off. Ah. So that's the subtle difference. Wow, that is subtle. Right? So old way, the border becomes colored. New way becomes thicker. That is one of those real subtle things. Man, okay. I mean, personally, I like the color, but that's just me. Okay. Cool. Okay, I am going to set these aside. We're going to leave these guys to log. Overall, I think this is really close. I think this is very close. I'm going to push some of my changes. Um, minor code. Oh, actually, I enabled a new button and I want to try it. Generate message with AI. Yes, this is an open source repo. I can do this. I think if we go down, so get cracking, experimental features, generate with AI. I don't know what I have access to. Test key is valid. See, that's cool. Okay, exit preferences. Gen. You exceeded your current quota for your plan. Oh, boo! Okay, so cool feature, but need to actually get my OpenAI stuff squared away. Okay, never mind. It was going to be a cool button. For those people who didn't see it, there is a cool thing in Get Kraken. So underneath preferences, if you go to experimental, you can slap in your Open API key and tell it to use AI to gen your commit messages. You should probably be mildly cautious about what repos you use this against, right? Because in order for this to generate, it has to look at your changes to effectively summarize them, right? In this case, open source repo, don't care a lick, right? And you saw how Git Kraken will prompt you and say, hey, did you want to do it just this time? Did you want to enable it for this whole repo always? That kind of thing. So if you are on a closed source or, company repo, disclaimer here, follow company policy when it comes to AI enabled stuffs. Okay? That's my thing. In my case, open source repo, yeah, I could care less, right? It's not like it's a secret. Okay. So, I was really hoping that AI would write my message for me and save me a little bit of effort. Nikolai, I'm sorry, but I know that you're more than capable of rebase. So, cool. I will send. I'm gonna post these lists of bugs. I'm just double checking. I don't see Nikolai in the chat. Sometimes he shows up. Okay, let's go and have a little bit of fun. Template. 1 second while I reorient my environment real quick since I don't know what I have open here. Okay. Okay. So, .NET templates for anybody who wants to play along at home. You on GitHub. Boom. So, this is my repository. Contains .NET templates. .NET templates are cool. You can see I've only got a few of them in here now. There's a command line solution. I'm building a NuGet package solution, and I'm building a WPF solution. And these are all currently full-blown, full solutions, starting fresh. Here you go, right? And these are opinionated. They are Kevin's opinion of what a good starting point is. I'll say it a couple times, but there are multiple good opinions, and you should pick one of the good opinions. And if you aren't sure which one to pick, I'm biased, pick mine. Okay, so what I would like to do, though, is I would like to start up an Avalonia one. Now, the Avalonia folks are pretty cool, and they have their own template. Nice. But their templates are not quite as I want them to be because they don't match my opinion. Okay, so we are going to create a new project, right? And I believe I have Avalonia. Avalonia, C#. Okay. I think we're going to go here and go through the wizard approach. Trying to look at what they have. Targeting desktop, MVVM targeting desktop, browser and WebAssembly. This could be pretty close to what I want, but I think we'll just go with the template studio approach, I think, and we'll get our way in. Okay, first of all, I'm going to move this into the right directory because I would like it to live in my happy place. So underneath templates, the way I've structured mine, so if you want to make your own templates repository, you don't need to double nest it like I did. So like I've done WPF app. The reason for the double nesting is, and this should probably be called like WPF solution, but is I might make multiple WPF templates and I wanted to group them. That's it, right? If you're making your own templates repository, you can drop this level of nesting. So we are going to do here, and we're going to go Avalonia. And then inside of here, we're going to do new. Nope, that is definitely not what I wanted. New Avalonia solution. Okay, we're going to go there. So, and then now the hard part is we got to come up with a good name that's going to be unique enough that we can replace later. And I think what we're going to do is sample Avalonia application. I think that's just unique enough. And we'll see. I don't remember. This may nest us one layer too deep. That's okay. We'll start there if we need to move stuff around. Okay. So I want this thing to target desktop. Wait, what? Let's see. Select target platforms. I would like all of them. So iOS, desktop, Android. Yep. Design pattern, reactive UI. No, I like community tool. We're going to go that way. I guess I missed that earlier when I was saying which ones people can pick. Reactive UI is an option. Again, one you can pick. Let's see. So like Community Toolkit. Yeah. Let's see. Compiled bindings, probably. Embedded support. What is this for? Add support for running on an embedded system. I don't think I care. Meadows. I don't know what that is, so I'm going to go with no. I think I like compiled bindings, right? Yeah. Yeah, compiled bindings are nice. You pick these up in newer XAML frameworks because most of the time bindings have to be evaluated with reflection. And it's really cool if you evaluate them at compile time instead, because most of the time they're known at compile time. Okay, we'll see what this gens us, but we may have to go and move some stuff around. Let's back to my Get Kraken file. Okay, best. Okay, just to be clear, these are two things that I think get overlooked a lot, and by two things I mean four things. Right? These buttons here. Right? Open in File Manager, open in Terminal, open repo, and VS Code. I wish there was more options than just VS Code, right? But still, it's pretty cool. I wish it was configurable. I want my own configurable list. Pretty slick. And just for reference, inside of the preferences, is it creations? There one of these spots in here you can go through and set those. Right? So you can set your external editor, your choice is VS Code or not. But there was a terminal too. Oh, it's probably in the terminal settings. I believe only apply to new terminal tabs. I thought there was an option in here to change your terminal as well if you didn't like the default one. But maybe I'm remembering. I could have sworn it was in. Oh, custom terminal command. Here we go. Right. This is when you fire it up in terminal. So for reference, if you want to use Windows terminal, this is the magical incantation. Right? WT space -D for directory. %D grabs you the repository path. This says open a Windows terminal at this folder. Bippity boppity booyah. Okay. I'm going to look real quick. So I think it nested one level 2. It did. It did. We're going to go file, open in File Manager. We're going to go down a layer because we went here, here, here. Right? And what I would really like is all of these ones go higher. So we're going to close Visual Studio. Oh, no, we're going to accept the install of the Android SDK while it thinks about what it needs. Well, it has to go install things. Because Avalonia, like many things that let you compile for Android, at some point must do battle with the native platform tooling. Same for like iOS. Like none of the cross-platform solutions magically let you compile for iOS without a Mac. Like that's at the end of the day, it's a licensing battle. And if you want to compile for a Mac, Apple insists on their stuff. Now, some of them make it easier than others, but at the end of the day, you still have to do battle with licensing. Come on. Install Android SDK. Because I would like to cut and paste this entire directory up a level. You let me move around while you're doing that. That's kind of cool. Okay, so couple things that I want to go through and change right out the gate. So for starters, I want my centralized package management. I want .NET 8, all the things. I want to do my directory packages.props. Like there's all these things that I like to have on my repositories that are just not here out the date. Will you be uploading recent videos to YouTube's? Crap. Thank you for the reminder. Yes. Yes, I will. They are sitting there yelling at me. I had an issue with one of my automation bits and I went, oh, I should go fix that. And then I didn't. But yes. No, please interrupt. Otherwise, it's just me talking to myself for hours on end. Which I will do. I'm very capable of it. People sometimes ask, oh, is an hour too long? It's like, no, I can talk for hours to myself. Believe me, I've got practice, lots of practice. Don't give me any more time than you want me to talk. I do that all the time. Yeah. I I didn't realize I didn't have the Android SDK. I would have done this sooner. I thought I'd done Avalonia stuff on here before. Must have blown some of. I must have uninstalled the Android SDK. It was probably taking up a bunch of space, and I probably went, I don't need that. Well, so secretly, I'll let you in on a secret. Let you in on a secret while it's running. So I have this other app, right? Have this app, and this is a WPF application. Sometimes it's the only intelligent conversation I have. I can relate. This is an app that I first wrote. Well, the history on this app is missing because it started on a locally hosted SVN server. So if you're looking at the Git history, it's incomplete. It goes back much older than that. This was one of the very first apps I wrote. I think it's coming up on 12 years old. It is built specifically for one user, which is me. It makes me happy. It works the way I want, darn it. If other people want to use it, have at it, but it is built very specifically for my user base, and my user base is very pleased with it. Ish. There are things that bother me, and there's bugs that I found the other day in it, which bothered me as well. But one of the big issues, so this is a thing for managing my family's budget, and it stores everything in a local SQLite database. Move this where I can keep an eye on that Android SDK thing, which is great. It is a WPF app, which is great, but there's a handful of issues with that. It's a desktop app in WPF, which inherently means it doesn't work on my phone. It inherently means because it's stored in a local SQLite database, it doesn't even work for like if my wife wants to check things. Stand by one moment. Benjamin, I don't know if you're there or not. I didn't open up my dashboard ahead of time. Got it. I got it. Let's see. Whack. I even have a rubber duck on my desk. We're not on talking terms at the moment. After it pointed out how stupid I was with variable naming, I understand. I have a little duck too. On my desk at the office, I actually have a duck. It is a big duck. And it is epic. But yeah, so secretly, I would like to have a version of this where the data isn't stored in a local SQLite database. I would like it in the cloud. I'd like to be able to have at least a phone view version of the application so that like my wife and I can view things and then maybe start adding some editing capabilities. Like I think the desktop app is still going to be the primary usage, but I'd like to do a little bit from my phone, right? And maybe we do a little bit from web. I don't know. But it's one of those I also don't like I don't really want to expose my financial data to everybody. So, if we do it, we're going to do it securely, darn it. But it is something I can show on stream. Benjamin, there you are, right after I need you to play moderator for me. We are building an Avalonia template. And this thing is probably going to want to install more components, and we're just going to ignore them for the moment. So first of all, we're going to close this. And then we are going to pull this guy because I want to go Avalonia solution, sample Avalonia app. Yeah, so this whole thing, I kind of want to go up a level to here. I don't want, will it paste? I think it'll paste. Paste. There we go. Okay. Now I can get rid of, I don't know how it did that. Cancel. All of, oh, interesting, because the outer and the inner were the same. Oh, it did do what I, wow, okay. Points awarded. Okay, I'm also noticing it does have a directory build props file, but that's not added to the solution, which bothers me. So like there's things like that that I'd like to fix. Okay, what components do you want to install? I'm tempted to let you install, and I'm also tempted to tell you Net 7 WebAssembly build tools. We are not installing those because we're going to rev this up to Net 8 here in a moment. Why are you so picky about the oh boy, Android, you are a pill. Okay, so let's start with adding in some stuff. Okay, so I want the directory build props, and let's take a look at what they've done. Okay, so the key thing they've added in their build props is they turned on nullability. Excellent, I approve. This Avalonia version, okay, great. That's fine. I'm curious where that's used. I feel like I'm gonna want to migrate this a little bit. Okay, so let's start with the obvious one. Let's start with the obvious one. One, does it build as it sits? Before we get too carried away, does it compile? If it does, we're making a commit immediately. That way I've got an oh crap moment to go back to. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to do something stupid and then go, how do I undo that? Before we get carried away, all I've done is add a file to the solution. I don't think that's going to be a big deal. I guess I did technically move the directories around. wasmtools.net. Okay, so it's unhappy about the browser project because I don't have the WASM tools. I am willing to accept this error. Okay, so create branch Avalonia. Okay, so I would like to do this. Okay, save point created. We're off to the races. Okay. Okay, we are not going to do that. Let's start with revving this up all the way to net 8. Now, they have nullability enabled here. Let's see. Out of curiosity, did you make your editor config file that you use in many of your templates at some point, or have you just stolen it from places at some point in time? Yes, is the answer, Benjamin. No, secretly, it started off as the default editor config. If you run .NET new editor config, it'll gen the kind of a default one for you. That's where it started from. So, okay, and I'm going to pull this out. I don't know why they didn't put Lang version out here to begin with. They already had one of these things. So we're going to do... I like being explicit. I don't like latest because it grabs whatever's on the system, and I much prefer it to be explicit. So again, this is all Kevin's preference, what we're going for here. Okay, so let's go here. This is going to be net 8. Nullability doesn't matter here. And then this did company name Avalonia test. We're going to name this sample Avalonia application. And the reason we're doing this is going to be the primary key that we do renames on when creating the template. So obviously company name will be wrong, but we can at least get ourselves close, right? We'll go here, net 8. I probably still am going to be missing the WASM stuff, but that's okay. Then we're going to come down to desktop. Once again, net 8. Oh, did I clean up the browser? Didn't have. I wonder if that's why. Nope, doesn't make sense to me. Okay, and this is going to be a WinUI 3. So if you're willing to use Windows Mac native APIs, you'll need to create 3 projects. One for Windows. We're going to change this. One for Mac. And one with Linux. We're going to just do this because I feel like that reads better, and that up, clean that up. And then that gets me into there. Okay, we're going to go here. Then we get rid of the nullability. Can't net 8 go directly in the build props? Ish. So there's a couple issues. One, there are occasionally MS build tooling issues where certain bits of the tooling expect to find target framework inside of your CS proj because it's kind of the primary key that everything keys off of. The other thing is, even though these things all look like they're net 8, they've got slightly different suffixes tied onto them depending on the platform. So some of them could potentially save, and we could do like a conditional thing or whatnot. But in general, I will typically leave that one down in the CS proj by itself. JC, welcome. Welcome. Okay, we're going to go add existing item. We are working on a .NET new template for Avalonia solutions. So I'm going to just grab this and this and this and this and this. I want all of those. I probably want this and this. No, we're going to just bring in these for now. Isn't there some MS Build edge case as well? If you decide to go multiple TFM routes, that makes it bad to put it in the props file. Yes, that can also cause you some grief as well. But that, again, a lot of that depends on what exactly you're building. Right? And the multi-targeting is a little more rare for application development. It's a lot more common for library development. What are your using statement and opinions? System ones up top, separate out usings with spacements, or just alphabetical in a group? And also your ending files with new line preferences. Oh boy. Right. I don't remember. So I don't have strongly held opinions on the separating out using statement ones. I mildly prefer alphabetizing them only because when I do have to look at them, it makes it slightly easier for me to see what's there and what's missing, because then things end up grouping together. Some default settings will space them out. That sometimes adds a lot of stuff, but you'll note at the same time, like in a lot of cases, I'm going to do this and just not look at them, because which is why I don't alphabetize. I'm leaving this video. I'm sorry. Like, again, and to be clear, I generally won't waste time alphabetizing them myself, right? So I'm going to go Control RG, which is where is it? It's edit. Where's the stupid thing? It's the remove and sort usings. Sort lines. What the heck is it? They have memorized the shortcut, so I didn't have to do this every time. Remove and sort usings. Oh, what is that? Oh, hold on. I need to find one without it. So I will typically not waste time doing it myself. If the tooling, if the tooling's gonna do it, I mildly prefer alphabetizing it. And then ending files with new lines, couldn't care less one way or another. Honestly, what I don't like is I don't like when people don't set a setting in either like the git configs or the editor configs, and it causes extra diffs for me to look at in pull requests. That I don't like. I don't care what people pick, but darn it, you should codify it, and everyone on the team should do the same setting. Otherwise, it just gets messy to look at. So I care my time being wasted in a code review, having to scroll through like an extra 5 or 6 files that just have new lines on the end or new lines removed. That I don't like. So pick a setting, codify it, and the whole team should follow it. That is my opinion. Because because my time in a code review is so much more valuable than the discussion on which way is better. Okay. We got that. I think that, let's just make sure compiles again. Because I got my exclusions dictionary, my editor config, my default git ignore. And once again, the git ignore isn't anything special. It's literally the .NET new template. That's it. I don't know as if I've added much to it at all. There may have been a handful of things I put in there, but Microsoft, so it's unhappy that I don't have WASM tools installed, and we might go get those in a minute. But for the most part, this thing is still good. We're gonna checkpoint here. Let's see. Pulling out common stuff. Great. Boom. Okay, so that gets me to there. Okay, so now I want to go and grab those other two files because I want my. If I go here and I go here, I want my targets file, which I think is just empty. Yeah. So I put this one in because I use it in collapse using some file open, a great PS feature. Yes. I put this in here just because I tend to use this a lot in my app development. There's nothing I've done in my build targets file that I think is generic. I think every time I've used it, it's been highly specific to the app that I was working on. But I like having this in here so that it's already ready to go. We'll do that. And now for the one that's probably going to cause me some pain and suffering. Centralized package management. So for people who haven't seen this feature, rather than controlling your NuGet packages on every single CS proj, specifically the versions of them, you can control them in a centralized package management way, which is awesome. The disadvantage of this, and I think I am actually going to burn all of this to the disadvantage of this is I'm trying to think of what the disadvantage. No, there's none. I have to change my template to make it work. But when it means when you go to rev a NuGet package, rather than seeing a pull request where you see an edit on every single one of the CS projects, you see the version get revved once in one place, and that's the entire pull request, and it's so much nicer. Projects can override the version and say, no, I know the centralized one says that we're on version 4, but I have to stay on version 3.5 because I'm targeting an older TFM and that's all that I support and blah blah blah. Fine, whatever, right? You can do that. But in our case, we're going to do it here. And the key thing is turning on this package management. I think what we're actually going to do is I'm going to take this Avalonia version. I'm going to pull it out. And I'm going to put it over here instead. Right? It can break the licenses too. Yeah, that's a good point. This guy here. So I'm going to bring the Avalonia version. Then we're going to go through each of these. So here's how you turn on. What is this? What is this doing? Package reference if configuration debug include Avalonia diagnostics. Let's see. Centralized package transitive pinning enabled element. Look, that was the one I had enabled in here, right? Yeah. So if we go here, so the idea here is imagine you are referencing like EF core. No. Yes. We're gonna do this. This will work. Okay. So we're gonna do this. We can use EF as an specifically, we'll pick on the SQLite, right? So let's imagine you reference this package, right? And we're gonna say we're on 8.0.3, right? So you are referencing Microsoft Data SQLite Core because for reasons. This has a transitive dependency that says, hey, you need to have SQLite PCL raw core 216. Well, the problem here can come is imagine you'll note 216 is back here, right? The latest is actually 218. Now, if you don't do anything else and all you have is this reference in your centralized package management, and this is what projects reference, you're going to end up with version 216. The problem is that's potentially not what you want, right? Maybe there's a security vulnerability in 216 and you realize, shoot, I really want 218 because of insert feature, update, whatever, right? What this says is if you add a reference to 218 in your central package management repository, it will automatically bring in that version of the package. Because normally what you would do in the regular CS proj is you'd say, oh, well, if I want version 218 in my CS proj, I just add a reference to this and go to version 218. Well, instead of doing that, what you can do is, because the whole point of centralized package management is so that you don't have to set all your versions in your CS proj. You can set a reference in your directory packages.props to SQLite PCL raw core pointed to 218. And then this guy here promotes it to a top level version, and you end up with 218 everywhere. So it saves you without needing to have an explicit top level package reference. In this case, explicit top level package reference is what you have here. Without needing to do that and put that in all of your CS projects, you can do it once in your centralized package management and functionally have promoted that thing to a top level one. That makes sense? We might see that here in a minute. Could that break the package that references a newer version then? Um, it's possible, right? But that's always possible with NuGet versioning, right? Of grabbing a newer one. In general, NuGet package authors, the guidance is to not set a top end unless you have a specific reason why you know that, hey, newer than version X isn't going to work, right? The reason for explicitly not doing a top end and why these are typically going to show greater than or equal to is so that when there are bug fixes, when there are security updates, people can actually ingest those easily. If you set a top end limit on your NuGet package, then people have to do things like suppress warnings in order to bypass that, to grab outside of that reference. So the recommendation is you set a minimum package version and not a maximum, unless you have a good reason to do so. And I was guilty of doing that wrong for a very long time. Okay, so we're going to grab all of these. Actually, you know what? We're going to grab this one as well. And then what you do is you bring it over to the directory packages.props, right? And I think this thing shows, yeah. So that back, paste. So these package references go to package version. But you have to spell version correctly. And in this case, I think we can get away with this variable here. I don't remember how centralized package management behaves with it. We'll see how that goes. And then down here, we don't do a conditional on this here. So what we do, we go package version here. This guy doesn't have a conditional. And then we're going to get rid of that. And then once again, I will mildly alphabetize these just for my own sanity. Because when I'm looking through these, I kind of want to be able to see what's what. Or sometimes I'll group them based upon relative area. Now back over here, what we do is this thing is no longer allowed to set up a version. So centralized package management versions are no longer allowed. The version, if you do need to change it, version override is allowed, but version is not, right? Version is no longer allowed because it's going to get the version from the central package. Now this thing here, we still need the condition because we only want to conditionally bring this thing in. But you'll note that directory packages.props becomes a collection of all of our packages. Cool. Let's go here. So we have these two to add in. Again, I'm not entirely clear what it's going to do when we get... I don't know if it plays nice with these variables or not. So that'll be interesting. That up there. I do love that it's still using the Xamarin Android X one. That's great. Gives me a nice weird warm fuzzies. But yeah, the big idea is that the CS projects declare which packages they need, but the actual versions of those packages are declared in a centralized location. That's the name. Go here, paste, a browser, change you to version. That goes there. This goes here. Off version. You're no longer allowed. Okay. Go here. I think Avalonia Desktop is already in our list. Not. Not. Copy you out. We'll say the fact that they've gotten it down to such a small number of packages is rather impressive to me. Okay, that goes there. Goes here, and then we're going to turn version off here. And I don't actually have an iOS device to actually. So we're gonna build this, and if anybody has a Mac and wants to test out the template when we're done on iOS and let me know if it works, that'd be cool. Really, does the app just run is all we're going for. Okay, so there's that. That has done all the centralized package management. So let's build and see what happens. I don't know if it works with that versioning thing. Hold on, cancel. So yeah, I'm willing to bet it does not play nice with the version. We're gonna whack this thing here. In fact, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go Control F, replace with that, do that, and do that. Should just work. Let me just make sure this is. Oh, when I added these files, it brought them in from the WPF area and didn't. It's just referencing them from the other side. It's not actually. That no bueno. That no bueno. Okay. So it's not working because the files aren't bloody there. Okay, well that's not great. So props will be there, but the rest of them won't be. We're gonna get rid of these. Remove. Get rid of these. Remove. I'm gonna go to my WPF one, and I'm going to copy everything but props over. I thought when I did the add, it would do a file copy for me. Clearly, I was mistaken. You're going to paste the replace the file, I think. Look at the diff. What did it change? Hit ignore. That's a very minor change. We're going to keep ours. The VS Code one, or the JetBrains writer, might be worth bringing in, but I'm not going to stress about that for the moment. Okay, and then here we're going to go add existing item. I'm going to do this, 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 add. Okay, now we're going to build again. Now when I open you up, I should be in the right application. Okay, I'm going to close and restart Visual Studio because I am not convinced it hasn't completely lost its mind. Very possible it lost. Okay. Yep. Okay. Now I may want to go back and put this guy back in because I'm curious. Do this for a moment. See if this works. So I'm okay with the browser one still giving me the error about the WASM tools not being installed. We will deal with that in a moment. All these Java C errors give me a little bit of pause because we can probably put the version number back then. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to do this. We are going to put you back, you back, you back. There. So we can have this here. Now this will probably fall over with Dependabot. Otherwise lost indefinitely. Oh, yep. Okay. Thank you, Izzy. I forgot about that one. Okay. This now I think gives me centralized package management on my project. No, we should probably actually launch it to make sure it actually like starts. That might be a reasonable idea. So for people who missed my last Avalonia stream, the Avalonia is kind of structured this in a similar way to how old Xamarin Forms used to be, where you've kind of got a shared project with all your stuff, and then you've got these various head projects that represent your target outputs, right? So I've got a desktop output, and like that, it wins, launched very quick, and then this just works, just kind of nice. That gets me there. I think we're gonna end up. They did view model base and derive from that. I don't really. I may change my template to look a little more akin to how my WPF one, at least in terms of content. That gets me pretty close. Let's see about installing these tools because I would like to confirm that the WASM side of the fence works. Download size 400 meg. Total space required 2 gigs. Huh? That's a heck of an expansion. So apparently 400 meg is going to expand out to 2. Okay. Okay. Oh, and you're going to, I guess I should have remembered that shuts down Visual Studio when that happens. Okay, while you're doing that, I'm going to go deal with a. Okay, so most of these are probably just collapse this, move this. Actually, that's fun. So I learned a fun trick the other day. You can pin your window that's normally on the right hand side. It's a zip bomb. Yeah, possible. Rather than having your stuff on the side here, you can actually go to the bottom. This is I came across this while I was working on a vertical monitor. This is a very nice layout if you are on a vertical monitor. It's also a nice layout when you've got your big head in the bottom right hand corner and you don't want to cover up the commit message that you're typing. So it also works for streaming. There's that perk. I have to dial this thing back a little bit so I actually have space to see what's going on. Visual Studio's restarting. Bad Visual Studio. Okay, check that. Actually, I should probably be staging these as I go. Stage. Okay. Editor config. Yes. Ignore. Yes. Props. Yes. Targets, basically empty. Yes. Packages. Yes. See, and we would have noticed that I had screwed this up if I had actually reviewed my commit the first time rather than just blindly clicking the button. Right? Like if I reviewed the solution file, I would have noticed that, hey, these paths are outside my template. That's no worky. So that's bad. Okay, those go there, and then package management. Thought we fixed this. Oh, this is the WPF one. This one we want to revert. Want to discard these changes. We do not want anything in the WPF side of the fence. Everything should be in Avalonia's side. Also, separate note, because VS shut down, there are so many amazing VS extensions that have made life so much easier. Ooh, Benjamin, you should send me that list. That would be a fun thing to go through is some cool extensions and their usages. That's that is a topic that has been requested in the past and I would love it because I have a handful of extensions that I absolutely love. One, I need to figure out why Copilot has become incompatible. I suspect it's because of some issue with latest preview, but I don't know. Um, but it might be nice to go through because I don't have a ton in here beyond some of the defaults, right? Like, um, if you are using like Andrew was on the stream earlier, but he's got a cool WinUI 3 template that I've pulled in, right? XAML styler. Um, apparently, I've just Copilot's just broken because that's exciting. But I don't have a ton, and it might be interesting to go through and try some of them. Well, I wonder if compatible one is replaced by this one. I'll double check. I may just have an older preview version. But like Live Share, Avalonia, some of the Maui stuff, like there's some good ones out there. So yeah, shoot me a list, and if I can, take advantage of the 2 hours you already spent and go through them. Actually, we'll apply this to anybody. If anybody has a list, shoot them over to me. You can drop them in the chat. The chat sometimes hates links, or Discord link shows up down below. You can ping me there too. Okay, so I think we should be building now. Apparently, we've done the needful. Installation complete. Great. Compile, and then we'll have a web front end. Oh, look at that! You've even oh, so I'm noticing a pattern immediately. Mads Christensen makes lots of cool extensions, so there's a pattern to a lot of these. So step one. Oh, the file icons one. I've seen that before. Um, I think he also adopted the font sizer one that I use. Okay, cool. I will drag this on over here, and I'm gonna save that. What have I done? My browser one is now failing, but why is it failing? Dear heavens, what have I done? Undefined symbol, standard 2 vector base common. What the heck? I have no idea what I have done. And I have a sinking suspicion it is going to be related to the install that we just did, and it wondering if it needs a reboot or similar. Okay, show it to me in real air. EMCC, this guy, this command here failed out. Oh, 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 new extensions, new extensions. Hang on, hang on. Thank you. What is why am I blanking on the name of it? There is a brand new MS Build extension that has come into existence, and it is awesome, and we need it immediately. On the .NET blog, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Yeah, that's the name of it, but I'm looking for the. It's also open source for anybody who wants it. Thank you, Benjamin. I knew you'd have it. Ha ha ha. Thank you. So this link here. So Michaela has built this extension, and for those people who saw my VS Live talk a while back on MS Build, I wish I had this extension at the time of the talk. That would have been ideal. I told Michaela as much. The idea here is you now get useful stuff out of your editor when working with CSproj files, .targets, .props, etc. I'll let you read the whole thing yourself. It is open source there, and it is active development. So if you have issues, please comment. More importantly, right? So you can grab it from the VS Marketplace, which I will be installing. Um, this survey here, right? This is the key thing. Um, they they are trying to collect feedback on it of, was it useful? Did it meet your needs? All that kind of stuff. So if you try out the extension, please, please, please fill out the survey, as um this will very much help guide whether they go, yeah, that was a flop, nobody uses that tool, or whether it's this is a very needed thing, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, and be brutally honest, right? Microsoft loves to get honest feedback about what's working and what's not. They don't like people saying, "Oh, it's amazing," when it's not, because that doesn't make progress. They want to know where the rough edges are so they can be fixed. So, very bottom, survey. If you try out the extension, fill out the survey. I know it would be very much appreciated. Um, okay. And then repo and all that stuff. So you can see plenty of things here. Um, and plenty of work in progress to be done. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff here, and code fixes, refactoring. Yeah, it's really, so check it out, use it. I'm going to be that on my to-do on the side there to go through and pull through. Okay, so we've got this, and I'm going to ignore the browser build failures for them, because I don't think that's a big concern of mine at the moment. Okay, we're gonna check this in for, let's see, centralized package. Okay, so that gets us to there. Might change it. Okay, next we are going to switch into code mode. Close Visual. Okay, have this guy here. Okay, so what we need to do next is we need to actually turn this thing into a real template. Right, and this one will actually, it'll probably take me a little while to get it released, because I actually try to build workflows for testing these templates. At minimum, my templates have to execute, compile, and tests have to pass, because that's also what's missing, is we haven't added any tests yet. I want my test projects added. Darn it, I don't like having to do that myself. Right, so you can see here, I don't know why it picked on this one to propagate. But on underneath each of these, I also have a GitHub folder as well as a template config. So I'll probably have to spend a little bit of time figuring out the build template for it. But for now, I want to get the template config in place. Okay, so this is what actually makes a .NET template a real template. We come in here, and we got to edit some stuff. So we're gonna go Avalonia, right? And then we have to name this Avalonia. And I think I'm just gonna do this and kind of call it my full solution build. And then I'm gonna call it this. This short name is typically what you'll type on the command line. And let's see, language C#. Source name. Now the source name, this is the key one, right? This is what is the find and replace thing that I'm going to replace out with the name of your template. In this case, doing that, right? Okay. Oh, there's a couple other things I didn't set up. I didn't set up generic host or any of that stuff. So like I didn't do the user secrets. I should probably do the user secrets. Let's do that real quick. Like down here in my props, normally I do bring that up into this guy's props as well. Just because I like it when all of my projects have the same values for their user secrets. It's rare that I need to have different user secret files per project. It's rare. Most of the time, I want everything to be put together. Um, okay, so we're gonna do that. The other thing in the template, because that's the generated user secrets ID. No solution. I don't think we're gonna implement that here. No tests. We will probably implement that. So you know what? We can put the we can leave the no solution thing in there. So if somebody wanted to add this to an existing one, it wouldn't generate a solution file. Um, it's really kind of one of those. I don't know how useful. I don't usually use that option, and it's my template. But whatever. And so this will end up being we'll probably need to do more than just this, but I sort of suspect that the only test project we're going to have is going to be going against kind of the shared application one. So this will probably be good enough. The other thing that we'll end up doing, like in the WPF side, for these templates, you can actually end up doing conditionals. So before I was opening this whole thing up in Visual Studio, but once you edit your solution file to have things like this in here, stuff kind of starts to break. Um, let's see. Nice to see some Avalonia again. Yes, yes. Trying to get my own .NET template set up because I secretly have my own app that I want to do some Avalonia stuff with. So I've got a use case. So I want to get a template lined up so that I can build my use case. Let's see. Last week you talked about an AutoMocker resolver and SQLite. You tend to put out a sample project which acts as a demonstrator. Oh, that's a good point. I could. It's actually been one that has bitten people enough times. I was secretly hoping to get it implemented inside of AutoMocker itself and then just document it there. But it is probably worth doing a sample project to show people how to do it. AC, good question. I'm going to here of doing that because that's probably worth doing. Worst case scenario, maybe we'll just build that on stream. There's a couple things with the source generator solutions on the AutoMocker stuff that I have run into problems with, specifically in the testing realm of it, because it's become somewhat difficult to do accurately. I haven't solved it yet. And then I shelved it rather than continuing to beat my head against it. Okay, and I want to look at where this created date goes. I think I was doing that inside of my props file. No, oh, I do want this. I do want this in my props file as well. What's the last one I had in there? Implicit usings. I like that. I want implicit. Again, these templates are highly opinionated for what Kevin likes. And if other people find usefulness out of them, great. Where was I? That dated date. It looks like a copyright thing somewhere. Oh, I bet you it's in like my assembly info or app or where. Yes, Proj? Am I generating a assembly or targets file? Where is this thing used? Okay, so let's hunt it. In date. So I've got a generator for it and I'm not using it anywhere. I must be hunting by text. Aha! There it is. It only exists. It only exists in Oh, that's good to hear. I actually saw that PR come through, Mr. X. There was somebody commenting on it on Twitter. And I was impressed to see it go through. Yeah, I've contemplated going and looking the material Avalonia one. They had initially forked off of the MDIX project. I've contemplated looking at ways of bridging that gap to bring them together because it would be nice to see those things rev. This is a completely wasted and stupid thing for the Avalonia template, and it is a completely wasted and stupid thing on the WP. Oh wait, I'm in the NuGet one. I want it in the NuGet one. I don't want it in my Avalonia template. Izzy, I love it. I love it. Well, like I said, some people will argue and go, "Well, there's this other correct way to do it." It's like, yes, I know there are multiple correct ways. The problem that I've seen is a lot of people, if left to their own devices, don't pick one of the correct ways or don't know what a correct way is and need guidance. And so that's one of the things I've been a little annoyed with some of the templates from Microsoft is they tend to leave them very open-ended because they want people to feel like, hey, we're not just going to put you in a box. You can do what you want. It's like, yeah, but people don't want to be put in a box, but they want the guardrails up and told, hey, this is how you go in the correct path, which is what they did with .NET Aspire. And I was so happy to see that because it like .NET Aspire is opinionated, but it's good opinions and they're backed up by good rational reasons of why they pick those opinions. If you don't like them, you can change them, but hey, we're going to start you on a good path. Okay, so this gets us here. This gets us that gets pretty close to a working template. Let's test it. Why not? Okay, so the nice part with my templates repository is I have left myself a little script at the root called test local. I will warn you, if you run this locally, it is going to attempt to uninstall the templates. Not run this unless you are legitimately testing this locally and you understand the ramifications. There's no warning. Or they end up mixing different opinions that are mutually exclusive. Absolutely. Yes. 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 Exactly why I much prefer to give people pointed in a good direction. We're going to run this and we're just going to see if it works. It'd be cool if it did. Kind of nice. Okay, so we'll see it installed, and more importantly, we can see, yay, we've got a new one. Huzzah! Okay, let's test it. Let's test it. cd temp. Let's see. Wow, I got a lot of stuff in here. mkdir Avalonia test. Okay, so .NET new Avalonia. Right? So boom. So by default, the name of your template will follow the name of your directory, but you can always, if you want to give it, my other name, right? You can always change the name if you don't like the directory name. Whatever. We're going to go with that. We're going to go with explore with a period to get us into the current directory. We're going to launch. And ideally, if everything has gone according to plan, we are in a working state. Everything has been renamed, and it should compile with the exception of that obnoxious browser error. So aside from that minor detail, this template should just work. That's how hard it is to make a .NET new template. It's really not like the hardest thing about it is getting a project or a solution into the starting good state, right? That's the hard part. Once you get that, the template's just a JSON file. It's not hard. And I may merge this preemptively and let my preview packages go out, but I kind of think I want to play around getting the pipelines working. Yeah, so it's just the browser one. So if I unload the browser, I bet you the rest of it, just works. Uh, ooh, hot Avalonia. Let's. I see. I am very new to this. I'm just realizing I should search that over here real quick. Just okay. Um, this guy, I right. I feel like I've seen this username. I feel like I've seen that. Dynamic and this looks pretty cool. Yeah, because this is definitely something. One, this is getting a star to begin with. It only has 113 stars. If this works, this deserves way more than that. There's way more than that. Okay, like Microsoft has spent a ridiculous amount of time trying to get hot reload working well. If this person has done it, oh yes, I love anybody who goes through and shows me the IL. Okay, I have to read this. I'm sorry. I'm immediately intrigued by IL. Oh, somebody's injecting IL. I love it. I love it very, very much. I want to see all. Setup guarantees. We introduce a new preprocessor directive in hot reload. Great. Whether the project is compiled using debug. Yeah, we'd probably only enable it for debug. That makes sense. Even when you might find. Okay, we reference package. Setup guarantees all calls will be automatically eradicated from. Oh, okay. This is just demonstrating that it drops all of this out. Okay, sure. I thought we were doing IO weaving. I was very excited. I'm now slightly less excited. Still very cool, but I was hoping to see a paragraph on IO weaving. Let's see. Complex question. Is there a way to have a template get things from parent directory instead of having editor configs in every template? Can you have the root and copies? Not by default. So the way you do that is you write a script that does a copy file and paste it in all places. I've contemplated doing that. Um, and for certain files, I could probably get away with it. And I at one point I did a stream where I actually did, or I started down the path of doing a template of my template repository. And then it quickly became there were too many weird edge cases where it's like, yeah, just copy in the basic stuff because everything needs something slightly different. Like you can get yourself so close, but not all the way there. Oh, interesting. I wonder. I wonder. I might have to go and look at how this is implemented. Uh, that just means you need more conditionals. Solution. Um, if this is the trigger, I wonder if this could be done with source generator. Run the project with .NET Run combined with .NET Watch hot reload capabilities. Got it. Okay. Which this makes a lot of sense, especially for people who build in VS Code or similar. This is a very common workflow. This is slick. This is very sick. Thank you. Yeah. Add. Boy, my too big. Stop adding to it. Okay, but the short version, we've got a working template. Hold on. Let's be absolutely certain. Does it launch? I have no reason to think. This is the other thing that I want to point out. I know you guys can't see how quickly that's launching and coming up on my other screen, but it is fast. It is really bloody fast. That is the one thing about Avalonia that blew me away when I first tried it. It's quick. It's really quick. I don't understand how it's so quick, but I like it. I like it a lot. Um, yeah, and like I said, I would love to see about potentially bringing the Avalonia port of the material design and the main material design library a little closer. Uh, let's see. Quick call back to a couple weeks ago using commit edit on data grid. I can't get the clear button to trigger an event. You suggested using stack panel mouse events, but these don't seem to fire. Any suggestion? If the mouse events aren't firing, that's likely an indication that the container is not um, hit testable. So by default, things like grid and stack panel don't trigger mouse events because that would be really expensive to have them fire all, because you have so many of these container controls. It would just be a deluge of mouse events. If you set your background on those to be transparent, then they will become hit testable and they should trigger mouse events like click over and that kind of thing. So I would start with setting background transparent. There is also the is hit test visible property. But in general, just turning that on, there's a difference between background transparent and no background set. Both of them visually look identical, but the difference is when the background is transparent, there's actually a surface there for the mouse events to land on, whereas when there's not one, it just drops straight through. So I would potentially start there. Great is also Avalonia supports native AOT, which is even faster. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Just mwah. Makes me happy. That's the other thing I do want to do is get it set up with the material library because I do want that. And then there's a handful of things. Now that I turned on implicit usings, we're gonna probably clean some of this stuff up because I imagine there's probably going to be maybe not that many. And I probably will bring in global usings for like community toolkit. So for example, WPF one. Did I do it here or did I do it in the project? Probably in the project. I probably didn't want it for all. Yeah, so you'll note here I do. Oh, that's package reference. Did I not do global using for it? Oh, I didn't. Uh, Yeah, there's actually been a few requests of people that have requested the material design library be ported to other frameworks, which is no small undertaking, just to be clear. Like it is big. Um, like there's a lot that goes into bringing support for other ones. But like WinUI 3 is one that I would consider porting to. Avalonia was one I was considering before somebody else just did it all for me. Then I realized, nah. But it would be nice to have those things come together. By the way, I'm helping maintain the official Avalonia, so I'm really interested in your work here. Ah, when you say Avalonia templates, are you talking about their project templates? Because that's pretty cool. Um, yeah, because the initial project templates, yes, the .NET new ones, cool. Yeah, so the a lot of what is done there is pretty good. Like they're better than the default Microsoft ones. I'll say that. Right, but there's a handful of things that I definitely like. The NuGet config and the centralized package management are the big ones for me. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. Like on one hand, I understand that all of these projects need to be in sync. On the other hand, I am wondering if this variable falls apart when I turn on Dependabot. Because I don't think Dependabot is going to be smart enough to know to change the variable. Whereas it would be smart enough if the same value was duplicated through here. Because I think what I'm more likely to do, and this will depend once I get the pipelines working, is I suspect what I will do instead is I will set up a Dependabot inside of a GitHub folder, similar to what I did over here, right? But there's a newer Dependabot setup where you can tell it package patterns to group together to all send in a single PR, because you don't want, like when Avalonia puts out an update, I don't want a separate PR for every single one of these Avalonia packages. I want one PR and I want them all in the same one. So I suspect what I'll end up doing is a Dependabot with grouping to be able to pull all those together. That's my theory. But for now, this will work. This will work. And then I wanted to check, does it have, I always try to check my stuff in. Yeah, breaks updates via the NuGet package. Yeah, that's the thing. I almost wonder, and this might be a better place to do it, is, yeah, see, there is also updates here too. See, and I want the latest updates on all these. Because as soon as I turn this sucker on, it's gonna break on me. I wonder if it would be better to write a custom target here that just checks to, because the as I understand it, what's important is that they all need to be at the same version, because even though there's not necessarily hard links between them, there's a lot of implicit links, and if you get different version mismatches, your world ends and things don't work. And it maybe it might just be worth it might just be worth having a target here that says, if all the versions don't match, throw up a warning or an error and just end it there, right? Just stop. That way, there's not a lot of fighting. And then if they do get out of sync, well, the user's going to get a useful error right out the gate. And then these can go back to normal versions. Because it would be nice if it knew how to do these versions and shared variables, but this starts to get really complex, right? Because you can start doing like string munging commands inside of here, and that gets weird. Like, so yeah, it would be nice if they supported it, but I don't know. I don't think you're going to get that, because I suspect what's actually going to happen is then this, that was because there's so much power in MS Build to be able to do very dynamic things, it gets really, really hard to handle those cases. We're going to get these things updated. This is the other thing that I like about my templates with Dependabot, is every week I typically just have a slew of PRs that get auto merged, and my templates then always have latest packages, which makes me happy. So I took care of that one. All of those things. I think that's probably better. Not what I'm doing. Stop it. Okay. That gets me to there. I may end up going down that route, but I may hit you up, Mr. X, too, about this, because I don't know, if you're working on the templates, I will definitely keep you apprised of what I'm doing. That way you can at least see it, and you can take what you like. Okay, so let's do this. Let's version updates, user secrets, adding .NET new. Great. Boom. I'm gonna put and do a PR, because this won't necessarily go out starting, because this won't This won't actually merge. The other thing that I want to do is inside of my templates repository, my pipelines, like I actually run tests against all of my things. So I want to build a test Avalonia, but this is going to be a little bit difficult because on all my other ones, I can just run them on a single runner. That's 8 by 8 on cool. Alex, find you. Gotcha. Um, yeah. So the Avalonia one's going to be a little more awkward for me because I want to be able to I want to be able to test out that that once I execute the template that I then can compile and run it, but that's going to require at least two agents because I'm gonna need at least a Windows and an OS X agent at minimum to properly verify that the tests run and that the app starts. To test an app launches in a pipeline. Um, I mean, ish. It depends on the app, Benjamin. So I don't validate that the app actually launches. You'll note, but what I do test is that I can run .NET Test and .NET Pack against it. So I don't validate .NET Run. The only real way you can validate that an app runs, right, is you kick it off. You actually just start the process, and then you verify that the process doesn't just immediately die, right? But that really depends on the type of app you're testing too. Like if you were to do that with a console application, you couldn't just check to make sure that the process didn't die. You'd want to check to make sure like your exit code was 0 or similar. So a lot of it depends. So testing that the app launches, a lot depends on the type of application that is. And sometimes how long should you wait to verify that it's up and running, right? Like a web API project, maybe you've got a health check on it, right? And so it's not did the process start, it's did the process start and stay running, and can I get a 200 back from my health check? Or maybe we dive deeper and we say, well, does the health check return back useful information or similar? So there's different ways of going about testing it, and I don't think one size fits all. I think a lot depends on the app. And like the Nougat one, I'm never going to launch it. The WPF one, I don't know if there's a lot of value in it. Like if the tests run, um, that's good enough for me because at the end of the day, like there's a slim chance that a break comes through. Like there was an issue with my template that actually did prevent the test from running when the material designed 5.0 release came because I hadn't updated it and it caused a crash on launch, which was problematic for people, not surprisingly. Right. And my pipeline did not catch that. And I'm kind of okay with it because the amount of time it takes to try to test for that versus the amount of time it takes for me to fix when it occurs, the latter is much cheaper in my opinion. So, okay, I think that might be where I leave this for now. You get the PR. It should just go squash merge, squash merge. So it's gonna start there. Um, but like I said, because I have an Avalonia app I want to build, and specifically I'm looking to target mobile, specifically Android, because I have an Android device. So, but I'd like to build it with all of the other heads sitting there. That way, if I decide I want to use it elsewhere, like hey, I can do that. That's great. Um, but that's kind of where I'm looking to go. That way, that my little desktop app can have life elsewhere. I don't know if I'm going to actually port the WPF desktop app to Avalonia. I don't know if there's a big value add for me there, but we'll see. We'll see. I've got it separated where I've got like a good chunk of it shared out where the UI is a little separate, but I've spent so much time on that UI. I don't really want to rebuild it because that would be like my 5th time rebuilding the UI, and I don't Sounds like a pain in the neck. But to get a new Android app out, yeah, let's build a newfangled UI for that. But that also means getting my data into the cloud and off of my local SQLite database so that I can share it. Probably do some MSAL for auth or stuff to fight with. So something of that nature. Cool. Well, thank you everyone for coming and hanging out. Yes, I do have a keynote on here. I need to get my YouTube videos published, so expect that will be coming soon. There will probably be a bunch because I think I've got 2 in queue that haven't been put out yet. Yeah, JC, thanks for coming and hanging out, and I appreciate all the information. So, hopefully we'll see how things go. Holiday next week's hopefully get my flickering demo done to share. Cool. Yeah, that sounds great, Izzy. There is a good chance in a couple weeks I may even do a couple extra streams. We'll see. I'm being forced to take vacation, so I don't know how to vacation. And coding and streaming sounds like a vacation to me. So there's a good chance that if I am forced to take vacation, I might stream or similar because that's my relaxation thing is coding. So I might do a bunch of coding. We'll see. No promises. At a minimum, I'll be on my usual time. But with that, I'll tell everybody happy coding. See y'all next time.